ABC 57 investigates the digital divide. A lack of internet access in rural areas has been put into the spotlight thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, politicians across the country are working to bridge that divide, including some here locally. ABC 57's Tiffany Salome has been digging deeper into the problem and has that story.
I want everyone watching right now to think about how many times they've used the internet today. Maybe it was to scroll through your Facebook feed, send an email, or maybe browsing some Netflix. Having internet access is a luxury, and the reality is there's hundreds of people in our area who simply can't do these basic things in their homes.
I don't have a connection. I have nothing. No calls, no nothing. I don't know what else to do.
Alice Prinker is a mom of two living in South Bend. It's a 5-minute drive to the nearest Walmart. Her neighbors half a mile up the street get internet connection, but she doesn't. So right now you have no internet in your house?
No. We live off of our phones if we need to use the internet.
Prinker is one of 141 million Americans living in the dark offline.
It's been a very frustrating battle. And I've tried big providers, Comcast, AT&T, Spectrum, Frontier, down to like small community ones like Four-Way. This is, 2016 at the time. How is there not internet?
It's been 4 years since Prinker moved into her home on the south side of South Bend, and for 4 years, she's been living without any Wi-Fi.
During a pandemic, when you can't go to a regular store, what if your kids need clothes? You're buying them online. There's a lot of stuff that suddenly becomes online, and if you don't have a reliable connection, it takes longer, or you just miss out. You just kind of make do.
The coronavirus has highlighted America's need for universal broadband, since millions of Americans are stuck working, learning, shopping, and more, all from home. So if you've had some connectivity issues on some of your Zoom calls during lockdown, it probably wasn't your Wi-Fi router. It's a symptom of a much larger issue, a lack of ability of broadband nationwide.
COVID-19 was a really surprise stress test of our internet ecosystem. It highlighted really the importance of continuing to close this digital divide.
Federal Communications Commissioner Brendan Carr tells me they're working to advance wireless networks to meet the demand brought on by the pandemic. This includes awarding $16 billion over the next 10 years for broadband networks in underserved residential and business areas and accelerating the deployment of 5G.
The gap between Americans that have high-speed internet access and those that don't is really being laid bare right now in terms of access to working remotely, educating your kids remotely, accessing telehealth, healthcare technologies. We've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years. We've actually closed the digital divide by 30%, which is pretty significant, but we are not raising the mission accomplished flag just yet.
That flag actually won't be raised until everyone from coast to coast has equal access to high-speed internet. So for people like Prinker struggling for years at home without internet connectivity, the efforts are promising, but could be too little, too late.
It would be nice if it was done like years ago, just as a standard.
We've known for a long time that broadband access, high-speed internet is really critical to our way of life.
There's a push locally for broadband access as well. U.S. Congressman Fred Upton, who represents Michigan's 6th district, introduced the Rural Broadband Acceleration Act in May. He also helped secure millions of dollars in funding for unserved and underserved rural communities across Southwest Michigan.
And the big companies, they're looking for, the high concentrations of folks, the folks at the end of the line, the subdivisions at the end, certainly in rural communities, they're forgotten altogether. And we're tired of excuses. It's been 10 years of excuses and nothing's been done. This legislation is going to get it done, and we're actually going to see the construction start this fall.
The coronavirus has created a sense of urgency around equal access to broadband internet. So if you're struggling to get a signal where you live, remember this.
Is fair the goal here for everyone to have the same access to internet?
That is the goal. That's my goal, and I think that's really reflected in the Communications Act that we administer at the FCC. If you're living in downtown Manhattan, you should have the same high-speed internet connection, at least a fair shot at something that approximates that, as you do in Manhattan, West Virginia, or any other community across the country. So that's our goal, is to make sure that where you live doesn't determine the digital opportunity that you experience.
Other local lawmakers like Senator Todd Young have also been a part of the push for equal access to high-speed internet. With newly introduced legislation in both Indiana and Michigan, it's likely those living in rural areas will see some positive changes starting soon. Reporting in St. Joe County, Tiffany Salome, ABC 57 News.